Hello everyone, and welcome to my first look at the Gundam trading card game's Zeon's Rush starter deck, which includes the Gundam Assemble models. Now this is the first time that we're going to have a look at these Assemble models, and they are going to be released for a game that is coming out in 2026. Now for this, I'm going to be taking a look at the sprues, the models in general, and then we're going to jump into a painting guide, and I'm going to show you how to paint Char's Zaku 2, the infamous Red Comet. Let's take a look at the runners, as they're called in Gunpla land. We would normally call them sprues. Now these include round bases, which is a bit of an oddity as the miniature game shows them with hexagon bases. Let's open these up and take a look. First up, we have the Zaku 2, and this is the one with the Heat Hawk. These are definitely Gunpla runners, and you can tell it by the gates that connect the miniature to the plastic runner. Another thing you can immediately see is the static pose of the Zaku. That means customization will be difficult. Next up, another Zaku 2. This is the one with the bazooka, and it is in a crouching position, almost as if it's hunting something. Here you can see the eye and the head. It is beveled down. You can also see mold lines along the barrel of the bazooka. That means you will need to be cleaning these miniatures. Here's a gate. It will need special cutting and cleaning. Now we have Char's Zaku 2, the hero of our story. He has a machine gun and the command fin that you can see here. We're going to see more of him pretty soon. Then we have the bases. Once again, these are circular. I'm not sure what these poles are for, maybe to stand the models up, but I won't be using those. Warhammer veterans might not be used to Gunpla sprues runners. They are a little different. When using your sprue cutters, you want to cut slightly away from the miniature at the gate, as it's called. Some may have invested into exceptionally expensive God hand clippers to avoid having to clip at the gate rather than against the miniature, but I have not. Here you can see the result of clipping against the miniature. It leaves a slightly crushed mark. Use proper tools to clean up your Gundam assembly models, such as a glass file, and sanding sticks of multiple grits to get a nice clean finish. However, if you're like me and you're a Warhammer head who just wants to use the back of your hobby knife, it works too, especially as we'll be painting and it'll hide some of that damage that we cause with our knife. These miniatures assemble, pretty well by snap fitting. However, some areas you're definitely going to want to glue. And finally, here's Char's Zaku all built and a Space Marine to join us in a size comparison. To start off, I primed my miniature in Tamiya Ultra Fine Gray. This is the standard primer that I use for Gunpla. However, I'm sure that Chaos Black or any Games Workshop spray or any other spray will work just fine. To base coat my entire miniature, I used Mephiston Red from Citadel through my airbrush. Now you don't have to use an airbrush, but airbrushes do make things a little quicker and a little more consistent. Now a big misconception about Char's color scheme in the 1-Year War is that it was red. It is not red, it is pink, salmon pink to be exact. And to get that salmon pink color, we're going to be combining Mephiston Red with Reaper's Rosy skin, but any peachy skin tone should work just fine. And we will layer that over our Mephiston Red. Our airbrushing is complete and you can really see that salmon pink color, defining it as Char's Zaku. Grab your brush and start to put on some base coating. We're going to start with 2 thin coats Death Reaper for our black areas. This isn't a pure black, but we will be shading it down with some Nuln Oil in a little bit. Next, we're going to be applying 2 thin coats Cold Corpse Blue to our machine gun, as well as any joints. Next, we're going to go back in with our Mephiston Red and paint the body, which is the only part that is actually red on Char's color scheme. And here we have all of our base coats done. We're going to apply a wash of Citadel Nuln Oil all over our gray joints as well as our black areas. Then we're also going to shade our red with Citadel's Carroburg Crimson. Thin it down with a little water, that way it can go into the recesses very well. We're going to move into refining all of our colors, and to start, we're going to start with our red. We're going to rebuild our Mephiston Red after we have just washed it, and that's just to get our solid base coat back while that wash gets to our recesses. We'll have our first highlight of Evil Sunz Scarlet, which is a very bright red. Apply it neatly toward the edges. We'll next highlight with Citadel's Wild Rider Red, and this is a pretty orange color, so be careful. With reds, highlighting less is more. Apply it sparingly on the edges of the red areas of the model. Next, we're going to start highlighting our black, and to do that, we're going to be combining our earlier Death Reaper along with 2 thin coats Dungeon Stone Gray at about a 50-50 rate. When highlighting, make sure you follow the form of the miniature. So edges you highlight, and then rounded areas, you can highlight those as well. And then you highlight with pure Dungeon Stone Gray. Once again, you'll only hit the edges, but you'll want to have less of the Dungeon Stone Gray than your earlier highlight. That way it makes some nice contrast. We're going to glaze our Mephiston Red, and you'll want to do a thumb check to make sure that your paint is thin enough, and you thin it with water. And you'll want to glaze that paint, guide it down into those crevices. Adding this red glaze will help deepen the pink color as well as complement our red on the body. We're going to further glaze with Citadel's Corn Red, and once again, have it extremely thin. Check it on your thumb to make sure that there's not a whole lot of paint. It should be a subtle glazing effect that tints the color rather than fully paints and marks it. Finally, for the recesses, we're going to be applying 2 thin coats Amphora Red, only in the deepest crevices, and we're going to want a sharp brush to make a very thin line. We're going to begin highlighting our pink with the exact same formula, however we're going to add more of that rosy skin tone in. When highlighting, I like to stipple and scratch in micro motions to make some texture on the miniature. That rosy skin tone is going to brighten up the pink color, so that way we don't have to change up what colors we're using. We're just going to use what's naturally the bright element of our pink paint. And as you go along, you can continue to highlight even further by adding more and more of that rosy skin tone in. That will just brighten the color up, and so that way you can highlight and make it refined as much as you want. As you get brighter, just make sure you're only touching smaller portions of the edge. As you increase brightness, decrease the amount of surface you're touching. And when you're on your final highlight, just make sure your lines are thin and sharp. And we can finalize that pink color just by adding some small dots of pure rosy skin at the corners of some edges. These small dots will add visual interest as well as making it look a little bit more metallic. To highlight our machine gun, we're going to be using 2 thin coats Wolf Gray, and we're going to apply that to every edge of the machine gun. After that, we'll move into the final highlight of the machine gun, which will be 2 thin coats Gravestone Blue. Once again, with our final highlights, we always want to have sharp, thin lines, and we're not going to hit every edge. We're just going to hit some of the corners and be sparing with it. And then to top it all off, we will be doing the mono eye, which we will paint with AK 3rd Gen's Pastel PEach. Be careful as you get in there, as the eye is beveled down, which means it's easier to get your paint onto that black area. You need your paint to flow in it nicely, so have it nice and thin. Here comes Dashing Char, and first off, I want to say that I loved painting this miniature. I love Gundam, it's one of my biggest things, and being able to paint a miniature, which is another one of my biggest things, of a mobile suit is absolutely such a good feeling. That being said, there are some concerns with the miniature. I did say I would review it, so I'm going to give some honest, free-flow thoughts here. There's some weird design choices, particularly in the chest. There are some strange grooves on the outer area of that chest that aren't there on the normal design. Additionally, the spacing between the shield and the arm that it's attached to is non-existent. It's just a straight mold that's kind of a little ugly, as well as the tubing on the legs. There is plastic there instead of a gap. They could have had those separate pieces, but they didn't. It shows that there's opportunity here, but I do want to say that this is a fantastic miniature. I love it. I can't wait to paint more Gundam Assemble, and I hope you're all excited for it too. If this review and painting tutorial was useful to you, let me know in the comments below. Share it with your friends, subscribe, I would appreciate all of that. I've got way more Gundam Assemble in the future. I've got all of the miniatures from the TCG starter sets. Painting guides with those will come soon. I've got more painting guides lined up for things such as Horus Heresy, Marvel, lots of content to come, so subscribe, don't miss out, and I'll catch you in the next one.